Champions, it's Shinya. Welcome back to Champions Select. Massive day for Riftbound. 7 cards just got banned. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below because we're going to be covering all of the changes over the next few days. This is probably one of the biggest days in Riftbound history, so make sure you stay subscribed to stay up to date for all of the Riftbound news, and let's get into it. First and foremost, the biggest news of the day, Riftbound's first ban. 4 cards and 3 battlefields have just been banned in official capacity. Wow, this is crazy. Honestly, a lot of us didn't see this coming. We thought some erratas were going to happen, we thought some changes were going to happen, but not necessarily straight up banned. So let's go ahead and review the cards. The following cards are banned from Riftbound Standard Constructed. Called Shot, Draven, Fight or Flight, Scrap Heap, Dreaming Tree, Obelisk of Power, and Reaver's Row. Holy crap. These are some of the biggest bans that I honestly thought was going to happen. Dreaming Tree, obviously way too much draw power. Obelisk of Power, making those games, go into the later stages of the turns with your runes very quickly. And then Reaver's Row, just, cheating those combats to sending your units in and not having to really worry about them dying because you just retreat them away. Called Shot, obviously, I think this is probably the one that everyone saw coming. Called Shot was just too incredibly powerful. Being able to look at the top 4 and draw 2 for 1, purple energy if you had Ezreal out, very powerful. Draven, Red Draven coming out and getting banned. Draven's probably one of the best 4-drops, if not the best 4-drop in the game currently, especially when you combine it with this legend. A little bit too powerful. Fight or Flight, just, the utility around this, being able to hide it, being able to hardcast it for 2, when decks like Annie exist, always having that 2 up. Scrap Heap was sort of the dark horse I didn't see getting banned, but Scrap Heap was really enabling those miracle decks, and, again, Detonate Draven. Detonate Draven was probably one of the strongest decks in the format, but let's go ahead and read over what the thought process behind this is. So, hey Riftbounders, Dave Guskin here to discuss today's bans and our design team's philosophies, which lead us to making these changes to competitive Riftbound. For this update, I've asked John Dorman, our set design lead, to walk through the details in the video because he's been close to the change himself. You'll find more from me, yada yada yada. Okay, so we'll take a peek at that video shortly. Before we get into today's details, it's important to highlight that we know today's bans will impact many players. Bans are not something we take lightly, especially today's as they are first ever bans for Riftbound. Our approach has always been to do what we believe is best for Riftbound players, even when it's difficult. We're committed to being honest and direct with our players regarding the game, and today we're continuing that by detailing how and why we arrived on our decision to ban these cards in battlefields. So when do we ban cards? These are the first bans we're making in Riftbound. So first bans, they've set the precedent now. There is a world where cards are regularly banned and constructed. I want to broadly explain when and why we ban cards. To some degree, this is a work in process. We'll be informed by how these impact the Riftbound competitive metagame, and our future decisions will take that and player sentiment into account. There are a number of factors that matter when we consider whether to ban. Is the card overrepresented in a healthy way? And those 7 cards, those 4 cards and 3 battlefields, were extremely overrepresented. We don't want our metagame dominated by a single legend domain or play pattern, which has been purple. To define this, we take many things into consideration, such as impacts on organized play and at every level of representation at major events. The problem is with the card likely to get worse over time. Certain types of problems are more likely to get worse over time. Specifically, cards that are inexpensive and synergy driven will tend to get stronger as we release more cards, things like Called Shot, since they can combine with more and more things. If we believe that we will have to take action against a certain card eventually, we want to act sooner than later. Makes sense. Does this card promote play patterns that negatively affect the game in other ways? It isn't all about power. Player experience matters as well. Riftbound can be complex, and while that's a big part of what our competitive players enjoy, we don't want games to feel miserable or tournaments to take forever. And that was one of the issues currently with things like Miracle decks and those Detonate decks. They just, as someone who played them, as someone who, won a skirmish with one of them, Detonate Draven takes so long. I mean, 2-3 games, you're in your second game, you're generally going 2 time. What about changing the rules or the cards? So rather than ban cards, why don't we just change them? Change the underlying rules to remove power or restore fun. We do errata cards and change the rules over time. Riftbound is a game where new rules are added every new set. We hope that keeps it fresh and fun. But the primary purpose of changes like this is long-term health of the game. Either the rules that can't support the content properly and changes must be made to provide that support, or to clarify what's intended to happen with a card or rule. We do not change cards or rules as a balance leveler to adjust the competitive metagame. What about restricting or limiting cards? See, this is what I thought they were going to do. When a specific card is a problem, limiting or restricting it can actually make the problem sharper. It can then come down to magnified randomness on who draws their lone copy. That's fair. For example, we do not have any plans to pursue them in the foreseeable future. Who knows what the long term holds, but it's not something players should expect to see from us anytime soon. It's also important to clarify whatever intervention we make in the competitive games, straightforward to describe you can't play that anymore is a lot clearer than you can, but only under these circumstances. That's fair. The game was already confusing for new players enough. Or you can play that, but they've totally changed how it works, even though the text is not on the card. Miracle decks. Oh, everyone's the big boogeyman. Recently, several archetypes have emerged that have utilized the same core of chaos cards to draw through most of their decks and play a series of undercosted units in the same turn. Players have been calling these miracle decks, coming from Hearthstone. These strategies have proven highly successful and take a large amount of game action and take a very long time to execute, with the miracle player navigating a large number of choices. In tournament play, these decks have also contributed a significant amount of round delays due to the time they consume on the clock. Again, as someone who's playing Detonate Draven for the past few skirmishes I've been to, that is completely true. Called shot, looking at the top 4, drawing 2, scrap heap, you play it, you draw it, you kill it with Detonate, you draw 2 from that, and draw 1 from Detonate, you're just drawing way too many cards. We do not consider this style of the deck to be healthy, and we don't want players to feel like they have to gravitate towards this package every time they play a Chaos Legend. True, there's no reason to play any other deck when it was just that incredibly powerful. On top of this, as the card pool expands, cards that support this type of strategy will only become more powerful. Because of this, we're banning Call Shot and Scrap Heap, 2 cards that allow the players to filter through their deck and get ahead on cards at a pace that's too efficient. Yep. The second issue power is power outliers. Other than the various miracle builds, the mid-range Draven deck has proven to be more prevalent and stronger than we considered healthy. Far too good. Mid-range Draven was absolutely phenomenal. Draven decks are more difficult to target because the most obvious card providing power to the deck is the legend, Glorious Executioner. However, if we ban a legend, we are essentially banning everyone from playing Draven, and we would only do that as last resort. That's why they needed to just clarify what winning a combat meant. Which I'm surprised I don't know if they did or not, I haven't read all these rules yet. Draven decks have a combination of a powerful legend, strong champion, and a highly efficient card pool, and battlefields that synergize particularly well with the strategy, like Reaver's Row, without a clear outlier like Called Shot is for miracle decks. None of these elements would be concerning individually, but together they create a deck whose metagame presence and win rate are higher than we're comfortable with. To be clear, we made a mistake with the Draven Legend, and the power of the Draven decks because making new games complicated and we've been moving fast. Wow, so Dave come out straight up admitting Riot made a mistake with the power. Incredible. To address this, we're banning Draven Vanquisher. Having guaranteed access to such a strong turn 2 play gives Draven deck builders considerable freedom while creating early game pressure that's difficult for opponents to navigate. Because Draven Showboat from Origin still exists, Draven decks will retain access to the chosen champion in each of their domains. Wow. So Draven Showboat, those who aren't aware, is the other Draven that was his might is increased by your points. Lastly, we're banning Fighter Flight to limit the power of Chaos decks more generally. Every Chaos deck was running 3 of these. Its ability to be played from hand or hidden to negate combat or protect a friendly unit makes it a flexible spell that is best in class in too many scenarios. Completely agreed. While we want this kind of design to be core to the Chaos experience, this one has proven to be powerful enough to crowd out other reasonable designs. Fighter Flight's banning will allow Riftbound's other colors to better compete with Chaos. As a set player, as a orange and yellow set player, yes, I completely agree. Battlefields. Battlefields present unique design challenges because of how they work in Riftbound, and that means we have to judge them a little differently from cards in your main deck. They start in play, can't usually be modified or destroyed, and can be played in any deck regardless of the champion or domains. This ubiquity means that they are a greater risk of overrepresentation and repetition more than on the other card in Riftbound. Given the quality of battlefields already in Riftbound, and that more come with each new set, and given their aforementioned ubiquity, it means players have options to find replacements, which still feel rewarding for their deck and when we decide to ban them. In evaluating a battlefield's impact on Riftbound, there's a difference between this battlefield supports a strategy or tactic, and this battlefield is defining the game, which these 3 battlefields, arguably, I feel they do. And we feel battlefields below have crossed over into the latter. First is Reaver's Row, which promotes a non-interactive pattern, especially if both players bring it in the same game. Oh, the double Reaver's Row Draven mirrors just came down to who went first and basically who has Treasure Hunter. Rather than having meaningful showdowns and interactions between players, a situation where a player tries to hold, players will just retreat. Yes. It's also disappropriately strong in Draven decks where the opponent can't retreat without giving them a card, in domains where conquering is already stronger than holding. True. Second is Dreaming Tree, which is a battlefield that distorts deck building and provides substantial card flow due to its ability to be used on both players' turns. So basically being able to draw 2 cards in a turn cycle. Access to this much card flow is a strength or weakness of various domains, and the presence of Dreaming Tree in the metagame provides an excessively high level of consistency. Very true. Very regularly are you drawing 4 to 10 cards off of Dreaming Tree throughout the course of your game. Finally, we're banning Obelisk of Power for being ubiquitous among the most powerful decks and for reducing interesting deck building decisions. Normally, when building a deck, players need to account for the games in which they'll play first and the games in which they'll play second, which means they want an assortment of energy costs in their decks. With Obelisk of Power, players can bypass this restriction and ensure they always hit the same breakpoints whether they go first or second. So again, you'd play Obelisk of Power going second, have 4 mana on your first turn, play your 4 mana, sort of Draven from your champion zone, and you were looking pretty. Our hope with this set of bans is that Miracle decks in all of their forms become less prevalent and less powerful, and that Draven and other chaos strategies take a slight step back and compete with the rest of the field for more equal footing. Completely agreed. I think these bans are completely justified. Who knows what's going to be happening with deck building. Deck building is going to go crazy. I heard Piltover Archive is even crashing right now. So alongside the bans, we had some 2026 tournament rules and updates and changelog. Let's take a peek. Vrisk here with a new tournament rules update. Since our last update, even more players and judges have the chance to dive in the Riftbound, yada yada yada. Clarified decision changes and judge rewinds. Ooh. Consistency across regions is important, especially as we grow more. Yada yada yada. One area we've seen differences in interpretation for handling in-game rewinds and changing game decisions. This update provides guidelines that clarify when players can change a decision after taking an action, when judges should issue a rewind, how to issue rewinds. Okay. The game state is now returned to the point before actions occurred fully. Got it. Redefining the penalty system. This update includes some refinement to existing problems: face down card errors. Shouts out to my boy LS. Drawing extra cards. Forgetting to ready during the awaken phase, deck list and deck presentation errors. We've also made a broader adjustment to how warnings can upgrade into game losses. Alright, let's see. At high OPL, warnings can now upgrade to game losses when a player commits different warnings. Tracking of warnings does not reset on each day of a multi-day competition. Great. The threshold for when warning upgrades to a game loss is at strictest at Professional OPL, obviously. These updates reflect our expectations. Judges are a critical part of any event, and they are there to help ensure events run smoothly. Yada yada. This update provides guidelines. Okay. Judges cannot predict outcomes of specific actions in their current game. Answer a question in a way that gives advice. Very, very big point here. They cannot answer questions that will help you with the game. Point out triggers, bonuses, or board elements a player might not be considering when making a decision. Interesting. Okay, like a trigger that occur or a passive might bonus. Okay, so judges can't say, hey, your Ravenbloom student gets +1. Hey, your Darius gets readied. Because of this, players should frame questions on the specific rule and interaction. If I attack and conquer this battlefield with my Trinity Barbarian, where I score the winning point. Because this word is a specific scenario relating to the game being played, a judge answering that question is seen as providing strategic advice. The correct way to ask the questions: can point scoring abilities like Trinity score you the winning point? As always, judges will continue to be arbiters of rules and treated with respect. Yada yada yada. Recycling clarification. We've noticed that players have been leaving their recycled runes face down on the board when tracking floating energy. This is one that a lot of people have been doing. While we love the ingenuity and the convenience this provides, it has resulted in situations as players improperly paying costs, runes being recycled in the incorrect order. Okay, yeah, that's a big one I never really even considered. Moving forward, when a card is recycled, it must be immediately put on the bottom of the appropriate deck. So when you're floating a rune, you can't leave it face down. When you're floating a power, you can't no longer leave it face down. Very, very good change. All right, covers the major highlights. Changelog for the March 2026. This is all just basically patch notes. Nothing too crazy here. I'll drop a link to this down below. That way you guys can go read it. Wow, what a day for Riftbound. We're 5 months into the game and they've already banned 7 cards. Let me know down below what you think about the bans. And as always, hit that subscribe button and the bell for all notifications, because there's going to be a lot of news coming out over the next few days on decks, what's going to do to the meta, things like that. So you're not going to want to miss what we have cooking up. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.